with matters that were deferred. We have compiled a report, which is on the screen. It says, report on matters subjected to further processing. This related to responses to executive statements, declarations of vote, and sequencing of motions. The Chief Whips Forum has since discussed these matters and reached an agreement. So the time for responses to executive statements is now 69 minutes. Combined with the ministerial time, it will be 89 minutes. In terms of sequencing and opportunities for motions, previously we presented 24 opportunities. There were concerns. Those opportunities have since been revised to 30, and that is been agreed to by the WIPARI. Declarations of vote. The time for declarations of vote will be 46 minutes, and the other parties will get 2 minutes each. So those are the issues that were deferred, ma'am. I can go on to the other issues with your permission.
Maybe let's deal with this. Honourable Member, there is a report on the matters that were deferred. Are we comfortable? It is indicated that this was discussed in the WIPARI, and this was agreed to. Thank you. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. First of all, I want to apologize because I'm new here.
Can you please use the mic?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. My name is Ketama Barastol. I'm checking, Honourable Chairperson, under opportunities because it says nothing about the IFP, only says other parties one. I don't know, IFP is under other parties.
Madam Speaker, the matter was discussed in the last meeting. When you apply the formula, in this instance, I guess the Honourable Member is referring to the sequencing of motions. In this instance, the IFP would have fallen under other parties when you do the formula and the calculation. The last meeting dealt extensively with the formula, so I'll be guided by this meeting if we need to revisit that. But the matter was discussed. Honourable Machozi was here and was referred to the Chief Whips Forum. She was also present in the Chief Whips Forum, and this is the outcome of the process.
You still want to consult among yourselves? If so, I'll give you a minute. Just to remind members that in the last meeting, there was concerns about the allocation of minutes. We had indicated that the formula we had used was to ensure that smaller parties do get an opportunity to also participate in those opportunities that are available for the executive statements as well as the motion and declaration of votes. And in that discussion, we did indicate that if we were to apply strictly the formula, it would have actually disadvantaged smaller parties. So we had to find a formula, and appealing and hoping that parties with more votes would actually allow that we take some of those to ensure that we have equitable access. And this is how we ended up with the grouping and the formula as presented. So, as indicated by the Secretary of the National Assembly, there was extensive discussion on this matter, and we reflected on it and asked the WIPARI to also look into it. And at the end, there was consensus in the WIPARI, which is the recommendation that is made in this meeting. So we are tabling a report back on how that matter was concluded. Job. Can we move? You want to come back?
Bengicela Honorable Chairperson ukuthi mhlambe si-refer sibuye siyoyixoxa.
Honorable Hlakute?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I think as the ANC, we were happy to donate our minutes. And in those two meetings, meaning the Rules Committee meeting and the Chief Whips Forum, we came to an understanding, and also we concluded on these matters. So I don't think, Honorable Speaker, we should go back. Thank you.
Thank you. What is the view of other parties? Can I appeal to the IFP that we agree with the recommendation coming from the Chief Whips Forum, because you were also represented in that meeting?
Okay.
Thank you very much for your understanding, sir. Can we move on another matter?
Madam Speaker, we presented on opportunities to ask questions. There were concerns raised by the EFF. They had a single opportunity to ask a question. We were then asked to review the matter. We have revised that without disadvantaging any party. The document is titled Revised Sequence for Questions for the 7th Parliament. In this, we have also done a breakdown in terms of the formula. And the EFF qualifies for 1.65, which is rounded off to 2. And the IFP, 1, single opportunity as it was, and the rest of the parties. As members will notice, the ANC and the DA should have been entitled to, ANC should have been entitled to 7, DA should have been entitled to 4, but they have donated some of those fractions to the other parties so that the other parties could have opportunities to ask questions. So, Madam Speaker, we believe that the task that we were asked to do has been done, and the numbers have been adjusted accordingly, and we present that here for adoption.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the parties had looked at this matter. This is the recommendation. Do you agree? No dissent? Agreed to. On another matter? Yes, Honourable Kalipi.
Thanks very much, Speaker. I just want to check the issue from 3 hours to 4 hours. Is it covered?
It's coming. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Speaker, then there was a discussion on the whips. The matter was agreed to. And the point that we just want to put for the record is that the whip for the programming whip would not be in the whippery allocation for the largest party, but the programming whip and the chief whip and the deputy chief whip are excluded from that allocation. So when the allocation is done for whippery. So we just wanted to put that for the record, which we omitted to mention the issue of the programming whip. Otherwise, the whippery was agreed to by the honourable members, and we have asked parties to submit names so that Speaker can approve the whippery, but that needs to be approved by the Speaker. Parties submit the names, the Speaker signs off. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Mentor.
Yeah, Siyabulela Speaker. No, I just want clarity. When you are saying it is in the exclusion of a chief whip, programming whip, I understand. You mean all chief whips are excluded to the allocation of each party in terms of the whippery, or is only for the majority, for the lack of a better word, whip, chief whip? I don't need clarity there.
Madam Speaker, it has always been for the largest party, because the chief whip of the majority party or the largest party is covered in the Remuneration of Office Bearers Act and the deputy chief whip. Thanks, ma'am.
As clarity given. Honorable Trollip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just with regard to the revised sequence for questioning in the 7th Parliament, there are groups, there are 3 groupings for the minority parties. We decided that they would rotate, and we just need to make provision for that.
Kaso, can you please
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks to Honorable Trollip. Honorable members will recall that last time we presented 4 groups. With the revision, it now gives us 3 groups, which we think is better than 4 groups. Of course, there will be rotation in terms of opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any other matter that you need to report to?
Madam Speaker, matters were referred to the Review of Rules Subcommittee. Those relate to issues of Chief Whip of the Opposition, Leader of Opposition, Chief Whip of Majority Party, the issue of time for questions, a proposal to move from 3 hours to 4 hours. The subcommittee has not met yet. We have asked for the names from parties. I'll check with the team if we got the names. But part of what ought to happen today is that the chair of the subcommittee needs to be announced. And I do know that the chief whip has a proposal on the chair of the subcommittee so that the subcommittee can get going. We believe that the matters that are before the subcommittee are urgent, and for that reason we would like to, with the permission of the person who will be appointed chair, to have a meeting next week so that even though the committee was given a month, we hope that it can conclude some of the tasks within a week or 2, because we are ready with recommendations as the administration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable members, as Mr. Klaus has just indicated, that on those matters that one of them you raised, Honourable Mkalipi, around the extension of time from 3 to 4 hours, they are not yet concluded. The review committee hasn't met. And the suggestion is that today we set up that committee. Names were asked from parties of those who will serve in the committee so that the committee can meet as soon as possible to deliberate on that matter. And the matter Kambomvu, which he raised last week, and finding time, he will always remind us that that matter is not concluded yet. So we do need to deal with it as soon as is possible. We appreciate that maybe some of them may not be concluded, but there are those that are urgent that I think we need to close on as soon as possible. That's why our proposal is that that committee must meet soonest. I understand from Mr. Klaso that Chief Whip, you have a proposal of the chair.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Yes, I wanted to make a suggestion to the meeting that we assign Honorable Dlakude to be the chair of the subcommittee on rules. And the reason why I'm advancing that proposal, and I hope that it can be accepted by the meeting, is because given the amount of work that we are required to do, I think it's only appropriate that we assign a member that has had an advantage in the past administration to carry that responsibility. And I was informed that she has been the chair of that committee. And so I thought one should to propose that the committee should endorse her to take that responsibility again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a proposal tabled. What is the proposal of other members? I don't see a hand. I take it that that's seconded. Thank you very much. Seconded. Thank you very much. Those concludes the matters arising. Can we now go? Oh, sorry. Honorable Mentor?
No. Chair,
Order.
Mr. Klaso is summarizing us. There is some kind of circumventing the process. Yesterday in the Chief Whips Forum, we agreed that we'll come here and sort of establish a principle in terms of the sitting arrangement in determining the opposition. I know that the modalities will be dealt with in the subcommittee of rules. But in terms of the sitting arrangement, because government now has been constituted, we all know that and we live to that reality. And people that are in government must be in government. And the people that are opposition must be in the opposition. With that said, it means now that MK is opposition. And then the MK must give us a leader of the opposition and the whip of the opposition with the deputy whip of the opposition. So people that are in government, that principle must be established. Even if it goes to sub-rules, they will be dealing with the nitty-gritties of terms and all of those things. But reality is, GNU is in action, it's in government, and they must be GNU. No problem, we're not jealous.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mentor, for raising that matter. I just scanned the room and I thought, well, members of the GNU are already sitting together. But let me allow Mr. Klaso to respond.
Madam Speaker, we take this as a package. You may have noted that I said some of these issues are urgent. And that is why we believe that subcommittee must meet as soon as is possible so that the issue of the titles, the issue of the sitting arrangement, we come with a comprehensive issue because they are related. So sitting arrangement is consequential. My proposal would be that instead we urge the parties to submit the names for the subcommittee so that subcommittee can sit urgently and bring back a report about the titles, about the sitting arrangement. We will make proposals that will be considered by members there. That would be the principle seems to have been agreed to, but we wanted it structured in terms of how it is implemented. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mentor. Are you satisfied? I don't think there is a debate around the principle that it has to be established, but the request is that can the subcommittee bring us a comprehensive report, and as soon as is possible, that committee must meet. I've noted Honorable Mkalipi, Honorable Ngubane, and Honorable Majosi. In that order. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. Me and Mkalipi were one person. So,
okay.
I like the way you put it, that already the GNU is sitting together. Now, I want to make a proposal. Given that we have already adopted the motion on who is the chair of the subcommittee, can we then excuse the subcommittee from the training tomorrow to start its work? Because I'm imagining a situation of Tuesday, because Tuesday we must have a plenary. And in that plenary, we cannot have the DA say standing up as an opposition party opposing itself.
Okay.
You must live to that reality because the DA is going to stand up opposing itself. Yeah. So by Tuesday, we can make an exception that Tuesday morning, because the sitting is in the afternoon, then Tuesday morning we meet, maybe 11 or 12, and the subcommittee brings us a report which deals with all of that so that we resolve. And going to the House, we don't go with government opposing itself.
I've noted the principle, Honorable Mbomvu.
This thing doesn't switch off.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to respond that MK has already submitted the names to sit on the subcommittee on the rules. So, and yeah, that's all what I wanted to contribute.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Machozi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. No, I wanted to respond also on the 3 members that were supposed to be, the 3 members that are supposed to sit in the sub-rules, and we have concluded today, and I think maybe they will be receiving a report in the next 10 minutes that will say that which parties will be representing for the 3 members that were given to other parties. Thanks.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Honorable Mhlangwini, are you covered by Honorable Mente? Okay. No, thank you very much. If there is no other hand, we do agree that the matters are urgent. They would need to be addressed quickly. Instead of saying maybe members of the subcommittee must not be part of the training tomorrow, rather let's ask them to find time, because there may be members who are in that committee who are new, who would benefit from the training. So they can either meet after the training or whatever, but I think there is an appreciation of the agency in resolving this matter. And the proposal of Tuesday, we're going to look at it and then come back to members to say when are we going to have the Rules Committee. So the agency about when these matters must really be dealt with is appreciated. Thank you very much. Can we now move to item 5, which is the configuration of National Assembly committees?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have circulated a presentation which deals with portfolio committees, standing committees, and what we recommend to be their configuration. We just want to register what the rule says. So we'll summarize sub 3 of the document. The document is titled Establishment of Structures. The rule says, Rule 225 states that the Speaker, acting with the concurrence of the Rules Committee, must establish a range of portfolio committees, assign a portfolio of government affairs to each committee, determine a name for each committee, and of course, the issue of the composition was dealt with last week, but we may visit it after this presentation. So 15 members were agreed to. Together with the portfolio committees, there are committees that are called standing committees, honorable members. Standing committees. You have the Standing Committee on Finance, Standing Committee on Appropriations, Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and Standing Committee on the Auditor General. And of course, you have the Powers and Privileges Committee. I remember explaining elsewhere, can't remember where, that they are called, or I think it was this morning, called standing committees because they are provided in terms of the law. Honorable members, with your permission, I don't wish to talk about the functions of portfolio committees at this point. Maybe get straight to the proposal, also in the interest of time. As honorable members will be aware, the cabinet has been set. There are 32 ministries that have been established in this instance, and therefore we are proposing that these 30 portfolio committees be established, and they're in line with the ministries that have been created. And what we are saying also towards the end is that in the 6th Parliament, we had 27 portfolio committees. The increase is occasioned by separation of agriculture from rural development and land reform, science and technology from higher education, as well as creation of electricity and energy, correctional services being separated from justice, and noting that electricity did not have a portfolio before, committee before, now it does have a portfolio committee. We also state that this excludes joint committees, which should be dealt with by the Joint Rules Committee, Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, Members' Interest and Ethics, Joint Standing Committee on Defense, Joint Standing Committee on Financial Management of Parliament, Multi-Party Women's Caucus, Constitutional Review Committee. these are joint structures. Madam Speaker, we also want to raise a matter that may be raised. In the last Parliament, there was a matter about a committee to deal with vote 1, and the recommendation from last Parliament was that that committee could be the Committee on Monitoring and Evaluation, which will deal with the issues of vote 1. And that is a recommendation that we would want to make in this instance if there is still a view that such a committee should be established. Madam Speaker, without confusing matters, in the event that because the number of committees has now increased, and we know how many committees we now have, it's more than what we had before, if this committee is minded to review its decision on the size of the committees because of the number of committees that we now have, we have a proposal that can be considered, but that is up to the committee to consider that. We thought we should be helpful and do that in case the committee wishes to review the 15 and reduce the number because the committees are now more. Madam Speaker, that is our proposal. I know that I've summarized. If members wish me to go into details on the functions of committees, we are happy to do that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Klaso, and thank you for the proposal that you have made. I would suggest that maybe we look at the proposed composition of portfolio committees and hear whether there is an agreement before we can move on the numbers within committees. There is an explanation that has been given of the increase from 27 to 30, given the departments and ministries that have been split, but also the other matter raised within that context is that the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation will now include the oversight of the vote on the presidency, which is vote 1. Whereas before, there was no such Portfolio Committee that dealt with that vote. Honourable Member?
I think our submission was based on what the Secretary is saying, to say already there is a monitoring and evaluation subcommittee, portfolio committee, that it would be overstretched looking into all the portfolio committees. Hence, this proposal was that there should be a committee specifically to deal with the issues of the President. That was our recommendation, not necessarily to recycle that one and extend its functions to also look into the issues of the President.
Thank you. Honourable Swart.
No, Chair, I also want to support the recommendation of a specific portfolio committee on the presidency. This was raised in the previous Parliament. There was a study tour done, and it was also a recommendation of the State Capture Commission. And it's important that the DG of the presidency accounts to a specific portfolio committee on its budget. There are many, many commissions that the presidency also appoints, and they say they're not accountable to Parliament. So I think this is something we really need to appreciate and consider. So we would support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Mhlangwini.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I think we really need to look into the portfolio committee of establishing that portfolio committee of the presidency, because its budget just get bloated and it just adds and adds entities to his office. And if we're not going to have effective oversight in terms of that portfolio, we may never know or trace all of the entities that are reporting to him. So he can just take all of the state-owned entities and those budgets are going to him, and there's not effective oversight performed over those entities. So we need to, the DG of the President must come and account to Parliament. There must be some form of accountability on the presidency. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Mulder.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Colleagues will know that this issue has been discussed in Parliament since 1994. It's nothing new. But as we move into a new dispensation to a certain extent with where we are at the moment, I think it's important that we explore the principle and see if it's not possible. I've been privileged to be on that study tour to other parliaments, and to see how they do oversight. And I think we should look at the principle and see if it's not possible to make provision for that while we're moving forward now. I would support that.
Honorable Mtuli.
No, thanks, Madam Speaker. And it's quite helpful that honorable members are making reference to their own past experiences. Quite frankly, I have no strong objection to that idea, but I would have thought that the best way for us to take a decision of that nature would be that the members with an experience, as they are making reference to it briefly, will also explain for us to understand what were the limitations of having the presidents accounting through the existing mechanism of the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation. I will tell you why I'm saying that. There is one DG in the presidents. The ministers that are in the presidents do not have they would have a minister of monitoring and evaluation, but does not have a separate DG from the DG in the presidents. Now, my own view is that I know we may want to politicize this, which is not necessarily important. I think when we want to take a decision to create an additional portfolio committee, we have to really find a way to engage each other in a manner that clarifies our understanding about the limitations we want to overcome. No, not that there are many things happening there and people run away with accountability. All of us here must be committed to ensure that those who are in the executive are accountable, including the president. But when we take a decision, I think it's in the best interest of this committee that we be favored with a bit of details about what were the constraints with the current existing mechanism. But as a matter of principle, I don't think as the African National Congress we would be having a problem if ultimately the committee feels that there must be a creation of an additional committee to look at the issues around the presidents. In fact, I made reference to the Minister of Monitoring and Evaluation. There's another minister in the presidents as well. So yeah, but I think we need to, my suggestion is that if we can get more clarity around the past constraints and limitations that we want to overcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Trollip. Then Honorable Shelley, and Honorable Member there. Oh. Mente and Honorable Member of the MK Party. Let me
Honorable Nchingila.
Nchingila. Thank you very much. Honorable Trollip, if you can come through.
Thank you, Speaker. To the Chief Whip, I don't have any personal experience of constraints with monitoring and evaluation, being a portfolio committee and not being able to oversee the presidency. But when I hear Honourable Mulder say that this has been discussed from 1994, and I remember that in 2009 as the leader of the opposition, when I called for a portfolio committee to oversee the presidency, and it was battered away. So 1994 to 2009, and now incrementally, slow poison, we get one for monitoring and evaluation, but no mention of the presidency. It's that experience that makes us skeptical of whether your commitment to say, no, we're happy to have it overseen, but we're not happy to call it what it is. It's to oversee a presidency that can grow like Topsy, and we've seen it grow like Topsy. So that is the experience, reinforced by 30 years of experience, and we still don't have a committee to oversee the presidency.
Thank you. Honorable Vessels.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, also with regards to what the Chief Whip elaborated on, I think the most important point is not that there's only one DG in the presidency. It is that the DG of the presidency is the accounting officer, and that it's actually good practice that there's one accounting officer that reports to a portfolio committee. The moment we start having more than one accounting officer when we do, for instance, the Portfolio Committee on Monitoring, Planning and Evaluation, and we mix that with the presidency, you have 2 accounting officers, and there's just too much work, especially, as other colleagues have elaborated, with all the commissions and all the other entities that have been made part of the presidency. We do need, if we want to ensure accountability, we need a portfolio committee for that. And I just wanted to answer to that issue of the DG. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Majosi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine would be maybe we keep the responsibilities under monitoring and evaluation, and then take this matter maybe to subcommittee once it is established, and then we then can report back to this committee to say maybe these are the likelihoods that we can establish and see a way forward in terms of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Mentor.
Speaker, I think there's one speaker, I think it's Honorable Trollip, that kind of cleared what were the dynamics of the previous parliament in terms of getting accountability from the presidency. And with the limited time of the Committee of Monitoring and Evaluation, I'm going to tap into the upcoming item, which is the committees themselves and its confirmation. The monitoring and evaluation, firstly, it was meeting once a week. With the scope of work increasing in the presidency. Now, here was a dilemma. I was a member of SCOPA. The Minister of Presidency, it would be hard to get a minister in the presidency to come as an executive accounting person with the DG of presidency to come to monitoring and evaluation, as well as standing committees that they must go to account on the issues of the monitoring and evaluation only. Now, there is a need for the presidency. However, for this current moment, there is one DG. When the president was taking all those functions into his office, he knew there was one DG. Therefore, we are not going to be accountable for the incompetency or whatever that happened there. That one DG must account for all the functions that are in the presidency. And if they have to go to 2 committees, so be it, until such time that they realize they need an additional DG for additional functions, if they want to split it. But we want a vote 1 committee where vote 1 is going to be scrutinized and all the other entities. Now, there was, during the announcement of cabinet, when the SOEs were being removed, there was a mention that some of the SOEs will go to the presidency until something happens about them. We haven't been told if Transnet has gone to transport. We haven't been told if Denel has gone to energy or whatever. The only thing we're told was electricity has gone to energy. So there are entities that have moved to the president. Those entities' budget must be accounted for. They are not going to be accounted for if we don't have that committee. And we must agree. If we agree that that committee goes to monitoring and evaluation for the time being, until we deal with all the modalities in terms of what are the functions, when can we get the second DG, but one thing we must agree on, we're not going to only deal with monitoring and evaluation, those useless things of how provinces are functioning and whatnot. We want to know what's happening in the office of the president. Hence, there's so many deputy ministers that are appointed to look after those functions. Thank you.
Thank you, Makubela.
Thank you, Speaker. My proposal is that the presidency continues to report within the MNE. And for now, we do not establish a committee for vote 1. But then we put up a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee that will look into the modalities of how best we can be able to ensure that the DG and the ministers within the presidency will be able to come and account to a committee that would be formed to take care of budget vote 1. I say this because all we are hearing here is study tour here. We've always wanted a committee for budget vote 1, but we are looking at the modalities that can be used. At this rules meeting, we can't be conclusive. So I suggest that we leave the presidency within the MNE and form an ad hoc committee that will be looking into how best can we then make budget vote 1 be accountable. Thank you.
Honorable Nchingila, followed by Honorable Frolick.
No, thanks, Speaker. I think in the spirit of accountability, MNE has its own budget, and the presidency has its own budget. So one portfolio committee cannot be responsible for 2 departments. So even in the provincial legislatures, there's OCPOL, a separate entity looking into the affairs of the Premier. So this is in line with the implications that were raised, recommendations that were raised in the Zondo Commission, that it cannot be that we also perpetuate the duplication of functions. MNE already is overstretched. We need, and many of the functions or responsibilities that were in the public enterprise and others are now in the presidency. So it would require a portfolio committee that will directly look into the affairs of Rule 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Frolick.
No, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, reference is made, and I think a lot of the members who are here were not part of the study tour that is being referred to. Maybe that report should be made available to all parties. I led that study tour to the UK. They don't have an oversight committee over the Prime Minister. They have a liaison committee that interacts with the Prime Minister, a highly controlled environment, and I don't think that is what members are talking about here. In the light of that, if that report can be circulated, but the EFF made a good proposal that it should go for further work to the subcommittee on the rules. We don't need to create another structure to look into the matter and then be given a time frame to report back to the rules committee so that a decision can then be taken.
Thank you. Honorable Nkaka, you're the last one, and I'll summarize.
Thank you, Speaker. Indeed, I'm in favor of the committee, the subcommittee being given clear time frames in terms of what we want to achieve so that the matter doesn't get buried there and then it's debated for the next 5 years until we meet again in 2029. The point which was made by Honorable Mente is right in saying that we shouldn't allow a lot of entities now going to report directly to the President. And we cannot allow a situation where the work of the presidency and those entities is shrouded in secrecy. We are Parliament, we should err on the side of making sure that there is more accountability when it comes to the executive. I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honourable members, for your reflections on this matter. Just to make some clarity, you do have the DG of Monitoring and Evaluation. You do have the DG of State Security, even though the ministry is in the presidency. You do have the DG of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, and you have the DG in the presidency. So I just thought I needed to clarify that. But what is emerging in the discussion is that there is indeed a view, strong view, that we need to have an oversight on vote 1. currently, the proposal that was being made by Parliament is that it should report through monitoring and evaluation. And majority of members are saying, no, that will be too overstretched on that committee and the work that it's supposed to do. However, the midpoint is the recommendation that, in principle, this is what we want, but let's go and work out the modalities of how it will work, what it's in function, share the report of the study tour with everybody, and the review subcommittee of the rules report to the Rules Committee as soon as is possible. Will that be the correct summary? Honourable Member?
Yes, it's a correct summary with the proviso that meantime they must report to monitoring and evaluation.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So what is being suggested? The review committee, which has to meet as soon as possible. This is one of the agenda items, and I would request that Parliament Secretariat circulate the study tour report to all parties so that everybody has an appreciation of what that report said in terms of the study tour. Thank you very much. This now takes us to the cluster system. Oh, sorry. The one issue that was raised, there was a recommendation made by the Secretariat that we review the size of committees from 15 to 13. So I want to hear your reflections on that. Honourable Majosi.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I think here we have been provided with two options. And maybe I will recommend that we take option one, because then it doesn't stretch members that much, and also those who do not have large caucuses, so that each member can have two committees to sit in. So I would propose that maybe we take option one of 11 members.
Honourable Mentor, Honourable Vessels, and Honourable Chief Whip, and Honourable Ghana.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I also agree with IFP that we take option one. I will advance a reason why. She had already mentioned one reason, which is very important, that all of us must have time to attend. But most importantly, if we go to more than 11 members, it means the bigger parties that are occupying more positions in the executive, and they are still going to occupy more positions in the administrative committees of Parliament, they are going to have less numbers, which is going to result to committees having to sit once a week, even if they can sit twice a week to deal with the workload. And we don't want to be managed like that, that no, that committee can sit once because its members are equally members of that committee. We need accountability this 7th Parliament. Yes, sure.
Thank you, Honourable Vessels.
Thank you, Speaker. We also support option one, and the reasons given does make sense. We have more departments than that was envisaged, and the fact that we want effective functioning with members, what the Honourable Mentor said is absolutely correct, and option one will streamline our effectiveness in committees. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Ntuli.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Honourable Mentor was taking notes from us on that issue, so we are in full support of the option one. Let's take the option one. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Ghana and Honourable Nkwankwa.
Thanks very much, Madam Speaker. So, I've been trying to deal with the implications of either of the options, especially as it relates to other parties. And so when I was looking at it, so if we, because now that we know the committees, almost, I think the committees are accepted as such. The two, I would have hoped that it's 3, and I don't know where we get the third one. Considering that the other parties will then have, I think, around about 46 members that are not in the executive. And when I look at the 2, and we have 37 committees or 38 committees, then makes for a different kind of mathematics, gymnastics that have to be done. But if there's consensus on 2, we will do the gymnastics and present the members. Will speak to these other parties. I've been, that's why my head, it's on the other debate I was not there, because I was looking at this one, trying to do the numbers. But if there's a feeling that 2 is better than 3, then it should be fine. We'll just have to look at the direct implications for the members in that regard. And then we'll work around it. It's something that we can work around.
Thank you.
President,
thanks. Honorable Kwang.
Speaker, thank you very much. Indeed, Honorable Ghana is right that we'll have to find a way of working around and making option 1 possible, because it is the most sensible proposal from a practical point of view. Brings us back to what would actually work, because remember, there are issues of committees not being able to correct, especially when you're busy with BRRR reports and a host of other important meetings. Once the size of committees are too big, then you are going to have a challenge towards the end of the year. Thank you, Chair. Option 1.
Thank you. I've not seen any other hand. It looks like we're all agreeing on option 1. Agreed. Thank you. We now move to the cluster system of governance portfolio for oral question. Cluster?
Madam Speaker, we have circulated a document for consideration by honorable members. If honorable member...
Sorry, there's an intervention, Honorable Ghana.
Thanks, Chair. This is I want to table a formal request before we move to the clustering. So one of the things that aid the other parties in determining the membership is to get some kind of indication of when the committees are sitting, even if it's a rough indication at this stage, so that we don't have a situation wherein a member chooses 2 committees that are sitting, whereas I would like to attend the committee, but because of the numbers, for smaller parties, some kind of guidance in terms of how the program of the scheduling of committee meetings will assist greatly in us making the decisions that we'll need to make. Thanks very much.
No, thank you very much, Honourable Member. We will try and circulate a draft proposal by tomorrow, which all parties would look at and make their inputs. Thank you. Can we come to the clustering of committees for oral questions in the board there as well as in the documents?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have compiled this proposal. I have my head of questions here who may assist if necessary. The first thing that we do is to give a picture of what obtained previously. But this is in terms of the rules, Rule 138.1, which says questions for oral reply by ministers must be dealt with in accordance with a clustered system of government portfolios as determined by the Rules Committee from time to time and published in the ATC. So the first one is a picture we had in the previous parliament, and these are the ministries that you had under each of the clusters. So we had 4 clusters: peace and security, cluster 1, social development, cluster 2, governance, cluster 5. The economics cluster was split into 2. One had 7 ministries, and the other had 6 ministries. We state the ministries in the next page. The ministries that we have. Okay, this one is not moving. We'll ask members to. Yeah, it's moving now. So we state the names of the ministries just for reference purposes, which go up to 32. We spoke to that earlier, and we explained why we don't have 32 portfolio committees. Now, the first option that we are giving, which is the next one, my team at the back will help me just to move the document. The first option that we are giving contains seven ministries, and I'm just looking for science and technology. Science and technology here is under cluster 2. So we have packaged it in the same space as higher education, where higher education was before. So we have cluster 1, 7 ministries, cluster 2, 8, and cluster 3, 5, cluster 4, 7, cluster 6, 6 ministries. Now, option 2, science and technology has been moved to the economics cluster. We just want to point out to honorable members that in the 4th parliament, that's where science and technology was. So we have attempted to do that just to balance out the clusters. And so cluster 1, you have 7, cluster 2, 7, cluster 3, 5, cluster 4, 7, and cluster 5, 7. We did attempt to create more clusters, but we decided to abort that idea because we realized that there are ministers who will never be able to answer questions in an annual session. So our view is that if any of the clusters has to be chosen, perhaps we should choose cluster 1, cluster 2. Option 2, sorry. I apologize. Option 2. Option 2 for purposes of this. I will go to the block at the bottom later on. But, Honorable Speaker, that is our proposal that we have in terms of the clustering of questions. I do need to say that it would be ideal to have this approved now. However, we won't have question sessions this term until the next term. So even if we were not able to conclude, we would still be able to conclude it before question session begins. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, honourable members. Here is the proposal. There's option 1 and option 2 of how we cluster. But as Mr. Klaso indicates, if we want to reflect on it and maybe finalize it in the next rules meeting, since we're not going to have question this term, it's not a matter of urgency, but it will be good for members to know. And that's why, ideally, we would love it to be approved. Honourable Vessels, Honourable Mente, Honourable Tlakute.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, I would propose that we rather conclude it today. I don't think there's a reason that we should reflect on this for a long time. I think, and I would propose that we do support administration to go for option 2. It makes more sense that science and technology, from its function and functionality, is clustered with economics. And I think it's a more even spread as well, with regards to not making the social services cluster too heavy as well. So I would propose we conclude on this today, and I would propose option 2. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Mente.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. I would agree also with option 2. It is more sound. If you have 1 with 8, we are going to have a minister that never speaks. And another thing, I don't know if it's still coming up on the blog below, if Kaso is going to explain it. My other proposal is that even though it's 777, we may find that 5 ministers will speak and then the others will not. And this is the experience of the past 10 years, that Parliament now must formulate a guide for parties. I understand that parties all ask questions right across, but sometimes they lean towards 1 or 2 ministries, then the others like that. But when the question paper comes, you are going to find 1 minister appearing 5 times, and 1 minister comes and never answer any question. There should be a guide, and there should be a standard practice or principle that we establish that all ministers must appear equally and they must answer equally. We must not have that unevenness we had in the past 10 years. It will help us to get productivity out of all ministers in each and every session for 7 departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Dlakuta. Honorable Troll.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to agree with the honorable members that we conclude on this, because option 2 is really supported and is what we used to have. But on the issue of parties asking questions to different matters, no one can dictate to them which minister you must ask questions to. Parties can decide any minister they want to ask their question to. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Trollip. Well, I understand, Honorable Mente, I was going to summarize to indicate at the end that what you were actually saying is that let's have a guide to ensure that there is a balance in ensuring that all ministers in the cluster do get an opportunity to answer questions. Honorable Trollip.
Honourable Speaker, I want to align myself with the previous speakers who agreed on option 2, and I want to move that we accept it and we do it today. But I don't want to jump the gun and go to the optimizing of the question time, because I think that's what Honourable Mente was also talking about. In the first meeting that we had, we said we need additional time to put the questions. And I see in this block that it says if you increase the time, it doesn't necessarily improve questions. I don't believe that. If you run out of time because you can't ask questions, it compromises the quality and the performance of questions. We've got more ministers, we've got more time, we need more time to ask them, and some departments will per force have more questions than other departments. But we need extra time, and I am very concerned, and maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I'm very concerned that we've already said, no, in the past we asked so many questions, time doesn't count. We want more time for questions.
Honorable Swart.
Speaker, I do support the proposals on option 2. I just wanted to understand from a clarity perspective, what is no longer here is public enterprises, as we know it doesn't exist anymore. So will all those questions, as was indicated by a colleague earlier, that Transnet, Denel, AlexCorp, SAA are now all under the presidency as opposed to electricity, will that now fall under cluster 3, governance, planning, monitoring and evaluation? Or where will questions to those entities that have to be addressed to the presidency we need, because those are massive entities, and we need clarity as to where we put those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable members. All of us are agreed on option 2, and we're saying we finalize that. There's also a proposal that we need to, while we may not dictate to parties to whom they should ask questions, but we appeal, given the experience that all of us have had, where some ministers will come, their cluster is there, but they would leave without having answered a single question. The next time they will come, the similar thing happens. And I think that recommendation was talking to that, to say, let's look at how, even if we don't dictate, but a guidance to make sure that all ministers in the cluster do get opportunities to answer to questions that are asked by members. There's also a question about the public enterprise entities, given that there may not be a clarity now whether they will fall under line ministries or they will be under the presidency, and if so, how do those get factored in? Will questions that come from there be under the governance cluster or not? Maybe Cluster, you can come in.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to point out Rule 352 that once that cabinet has now been appointed, the executive is required to inform the Speaker, firstly, of the appointment, secondly, of the details of the powers and functions formally assigned or delegated to each at the time of appointment or subsequently, and the Speaker is required to table that without delay. That then enables honourable members to know where they should direct their questions. So the issue of the matters that were under public enterprises and where they will be now will be clarified in that communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honourable members. I think we can now move on the block issues that you needed to answer to, and promise the members that as soon as we receive the detail from the presidency on the functions of each ministry, we'll then table that in the order paper, and that would assist then the Rules Committee. If there's a need for adjustment in the clustering, that will be done at the time.
Madam Speaker, we're not proposing that we discuss that block. We're just showing our hand there in terms of what we would want to place before the committee, that perhaps what you may want to consider is the amount of time that you allocate to responses, instead of perhaps increasing to 4 hours. Here we're giving examples that in 1994 you had 1 hour, 30 minutes, but you were able to take 14 questions. In 2009, you had 2 hours, but you were able to take 11 questions. Now in 2024, you have 3 hours. 2024, ma'am. You are able to take. You had 3 hours, but you were only able to take 12 questions. And what has changed is because the time for responses and the time in terms of the amount of minutes that you have to respond to a question has been increased, and the amount of time that you have to ask a question has been increased. So we're saying that if perhaps we can scrutinize that and see what could be done differently, you might just get a different outcome. That's the point we're making, but we're not suggesting that we discuss now, because this matter will serve before the subcommittee. This submission will serve before that committee, and it can be deliberated on there. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. This is tabling the matter. It's not for discussion. It's just to give a sense to those who have to deliberate on it, to say what had been the experience, so that as they reflect, given the discussions we had in the last Rules Committee, that we needed to have more time, that as members reflect on that, they can actually look at the past and how that can be has been dealt with, but also look at the current practice, and then we'll come with a determination. So it's just for tabling and making us to reflect, but the Rules Committee will then deal with it after it has been to the subcommittee. Agreed? Honorable Mente, you like wanting to ask, not wanting to ask? So as I say, that this is an agenda item, but it also helps us to know what they will be dealing with.
Yeah.
Yes, Honorable Mente?
Yeah, yes, Speaker. No, my difficulty is I hear what is being explained, and that we must make reference to the past experiences. And we seem to be losing focus of what was the purpose of the additional hour. The additional hour was to accommodate, firstly, all of us to be able to ask questions. Asking questions, there has been this conflating of issues when we deal with this matter. Asking a question as a member and asking a follow-up question. Asking a follow-up question, that's not your question. You are simply following up, and you have very limited time to do that. But to ask a question you want to ask and get an answer to that is something different. So this 1 hour was to accommodate that part. All of us will ask follow-up questions. There is no party here that will live without asking a follow-up question. But asking a question is important because that's now you express exactly what you wanted to ask. So the 1 hour was to make sure that all 18 parties can at least appear on the question paper, asking questions. If we then finish the 4 hours without getting to all parties, but they must be able to be elevated to a point where there's an accommodation of everyone in terms of asking the question, and then we'll take it off from there.
I do hope that you'll be in that subcommittee because really this argument is good for those people who have to deliberate on this meeting and come back to all of us and make us wiser. That being said, honorable members, this brings us to the end of this meeting. Thank you very much.